And about 3 weeks ago, Jeff passed. But I take comfort in the fact that in the last days of his life, even though he was an agnostic, in the last days of his life, we were all praying for him. Every time we got the chance, we spoke about Jesus to him. Now, getting back to the problem, the issue at hand. A lot of these so-called atheists and agnostics, wonder if you know about this one. They were ex-Christians, for many of them. And the only reason why they stepped away from their relationship with Jesus was because they got turned off. All these questions like, how could an almighty and all good God let my son suffer through leukemia at 7 years of age and then die in pain? So there's no God. I'm a very good person. And yet, I got run over by a bus and now I am lame. Tell me, would a good God in heaven let something like that happen to his good people? There is no God. Well, as many people out there in the world are thinking to themselves, okay, I know the rules, I know the 10 Commandments, but I can't promise that I'd be able to follow all of them. So you know what? Might as well not have this relationship with God. Ignore God and get to do all the selfish things I want to do. That is the problem. Now, did God promise us that there will be no pain and suffering while we are on this world? No. What did John 16:33 say? In this world, there will be tribulations, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. In other words, I can show you the way. Just stick with me. Stick with the plan, and you will be okay. God did not promise that this will be a problem-free, painless, beautiful, pizza in the sky existence every day of our lives. No. But needless to say, this is what's happening today, and people are staying away from their relationship with Jesus. And the question now becomes, where is the commitment? Okay? If people are asking, why, Lord, why God, why this, why that, that means that they really do not know God, do they? So, if we look about what's happening here, this is from divorce lawyers, Foment.com, where they're talking about the divorce rate in 2018. So it says here about 42 to 45% of marriages. Okay? And here comes what we have been talking about. This is where the devil is really striking hard at all of us. Okay? Statistics every 13 seconds. Are you doing that? Every 13 seconds, someone somewhere files for divorce. 66% of divorces are filed by women. 4% in the military file for divorce each year. 50% of children in the U.S. will see their parents divorced in their lifetime. 50%. Can you imagine the burden, the pressure on our children today? 43% of the children are living without their father. 41% of first marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages end in divorce, 73% of third marriages end in divorce. So it's like a recurring thing, right? And it seems to me the more you get married, the more you get divorced. Didn't learn for the first time around. Let's go for the second time. Oh, okay, strike out. Let's go it, third time. Strike out. Just don't work. The lack of commitment in a relationship results in a lack of understanding who your partner really is. Okay? And what we are saying here is that are we as people treating our relationship with Jesus the same way we treat each other in our relationship? Because if that's the case, then we're in trouble. 42%, 45%. Okay? Now, as Christians, I think you would agree with me that how we think, what we feel, what we do is largely dependent upon our knowledge of who Jesus is, right? Now the problem and the question becomes, how well do we really know Jesus? Because I can tell you, there are 3 biblical characters that I would like to go through with you right here, right now, just to give an example of how they thought they knew God, but really did not. But before we get there, let me just tell you once again, lack of commitment results in a lack of understanding who your partner really is. And if you don't really know your partner, what are you willing to sacrifice to keep your relationship with him or her? Okay? How many times have you heard a story of people dating, right? And nowadays, everything happens so fast, right? You got fast food, you got one-day delivery, you got speed dating, you got online dating. You know, I really do feel sorry for the kids because this is the only world they're seeing. They don't remember back in the day when we used to sit at the restaurant, you know, while the food is being cooked, right? And we have our time together, talk to each other, drinks, you know, before the food comes, and it's nice and fresh and it's delicious. Now everything's like, okay, let's go to McDonald's. Okay? So all of this, people are forgetting how to invest good time in their relationship. Is that a problem? I tell you, this is a little bit in the context of us as Christians. So this is going to hit home probably a little harder, but I will try to make it as mild as I could. Those people who like to stay in during Sabbath days and watch services from home. I don't know. Looks to me that it's like online dating with Jesus. Really now, unless you have some kind of physical ailment, you're sick, you know, you can't come out of the house, you know, or the weather is really, really bad. Really? Is that the right approach? When at 12 years old, the only single person who knows God really, really well disappeared for 3 days in Jerusalem. And when his parents finally located him, his question is, why are you looking for me? Didn't you know that I would be in my Father's house? And yet, here we are, we're feeling comfortable. Yeah, I could do it from the comfort of my home, study the Bible here. What was Jesus doing at 12 years old when they found him? He was studying the Bible of the elders. Okay? I'm sure we can study on our own, but let me tell you this, or rather, let me ask you this. How many times have you read a certain verse over and over, and in a matter of 5 years, 10 years, that interpretation becomes different. It gets better and better and better. Would you be able to go through like that in a better understanding of that verse if you're studying on your own? No. Probably not. Right? Probably not. And that is why, according to Luke 4:16, it was Jesus' custom to go to the synagogue every Sabbath. Okay? When the Israelites were in Exodus, in the desert, what did God say? God said, make a sanctuary right there in the desert that I may dwell with my people. Clearly, there is a reason why we have churches, right? So anyway, I'm just saying that. All right? But here's an analogy where it says, and this you can find in Ephesians 5:22-23. So you just want to turn with me there real quick. And this has got to do with us being the church and Jesus, being the groom to us being a bride, okay? It says here, wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as also Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husband in everything. But it also says, husbands, love your wives just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. So in other words, what we're saying here is carrying on and cultivating that relationship with Jesus. It's like being in a marriage. That's what it's saying here. Now, because of all these instant gratification things that we can find in this world that we live in, how many of you have heard of stories where you got people who met and now they're dating and everything's fine, all nice and rosy, and then they were dating for a good long time, and some of them, of course, would not even bother getting married. They would just share an apartment, and everything was going well. And then they take it to the next level, get married, right, an altar, and then not even 2 years later, what happens? Exactly. Divorced. Now, why is that? If you've been with that person that long, why the divorce? Does that make even, any sense? Now, the thing is, when you come into a marriage, it's a different ballgame now. Because marriage needs commitment. Correct? Once you're married, then you got to be more understanding. Okay? More loving, of course. Okay? Less selfish. Okay? And willing to sacrifice for your partner. Isn't that what the verse that we just read said? The very thing that Jesus did for his church. Okay? Sacrifice. The problem is, nobody wants to sacrifice for anyone anymore. Right? It's like, okay, we met online, right? Now we're dating, everything is nice. But when the going gets tough, okay, when the going gets tough, and push comes to shove, you go, what's happening here? This is not the same woman that I met online. I'm out of here. Okay? That's what's happening. And that's the problem, the lack of commitment. Okay? So, getting to my point, the lack of commitment to know your partner leads to the lack of understanding. And when you don't understand that partner, you're not going to be sticking around for him or her. Now see what happened in the case of Jonah. Okay? Jonah was a prophet. So it's safe to believe that he knew the book, he knew the commandments, and he knew God really, really well. Okay? So we turn to the book of Jonah. Okay. on the very first chapter, God said, Jonah, and I'm paraphrasing here, go to Nineveh. Okay? And Jonah takes off, right? So imagine today, Jonah says, I'm going to go. And you're the air traffic controller on the ground. Okay? And you knew where Jonah was going to go. So you're going like this. And Jonah takes off going that way. Right? We're supposed to go here. Okay, Jonah, you're clear. Hey, you're supposed to go here. What happened? Okay, Jonah went this way. And the reason behind that was because he did not want to go to Nineveh. And you know the reason why? He hated the Ninevites because in the generations previously for his people of Israel, these same Assyrians, the Ninevites, conquered them. Okay? Made slaves out of them. You remember Daniel? So you got Daniel, you got Hosea, you got Joel, you got Amos, you got Obadiah, and then you had Jonah. And in the Jewish culture, stories like that get passed on from generation to generation. So he had this firm hatred of Ninevites, and that's why he didn't want to go. Now, the other person that I would like to talk about rather, is the Pharisee from Luke 18, the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. So that's in Luke. Chapter 18, 9 through 14. Okay. And it reads, also he spoke his parable, and in that parable says, picking up from verse 10 now, 2 men went up in the temple to pray, one a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. So back in Jesus' time, I should say, this two character, one is the highest of the highs, and one is the lowest of the lows, right? So the Pharisee and the tax collector, that's how their society viewed them. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. And listen to this. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Amen. I'd like to point out one thing here. 2 people, one felt righteous, but despised others. Is that something wrong with that statement? There's something wrong with that? Righteous and despised others. How could somebody righteous, feel anger or hatred towards another? That doesn't make any sense, right? And finally, of course, we have the rich young ruler of Matthew 19. And this is another well-known story. kind of a leader in the community, right? He's a young ruler who knew the word of God. Seemed like he followed all 10 commandments. But listen to their conversation here. It's starting on. Now behold, one came and said to him, "Good teacher, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life?" So he said to him, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. But if you enter into life, keep the commandments." And the boy said, "Which one?" Well, Jesus enumerated the commandments. And the young man's response is, "All these things I have kept from my youth. What else do I lack? What else can I do?" You know, it seemed like very eager. What else can I do? Verse 21, this is Jesus' response. "If you want to be perfect, go sell what you have and give it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come follow me." We all know. Never find characters like this. Selfish. When Jesus says, "For everyone who exalts himself, but he who humbles himself will be exalted." That's in Luke 18. And finally, the rich young ruler. What kept him away? His worldly possessions and ambitions. Right? When Jesus says, "Lay not up for yourself treasures on earth, but lay up for yourself treasures in heaven." And also from the same chapter, this is chapter 6, verses 19, 20, and 33. "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and we all know the rest will follow. The rest will be given to you." So all of these things, our personal prejudices, our thinking of too much of ourselves, our worldly possessions and ambitions, these are the kind of things that blocks us in our way from really fully committing to God. Amen. But the problem with that is, if we do not have that commitment to Him, I ask you again the question, how well do we really know Him? Will it be like one of those online dating relationships? Will it be like those speed dating? Because you did not invest time, there's no commitment to the relationship. When things get rough, you walk away. That's what the agnostics and the atheists are doing. Blaming God for all their miseries and sorrows. You know the story of the prodigal son, right? It's in Luke 16. Just going to touch upon here something really, really critical about this story. That is sort of an eye-opener for me. This is one of those stories that we knew from the time we started reading the Bible, but then people would offer us different insights and interpretations. And then one of those things from time to time will smack us in the head, you know, and we make us realize, oh my goodness, God's so good. I didn't think of that. Okay, so anyway, Luke 16. Starting on verse 11. So we know the story. The second son wanted to get his part of the inheritance because he wanted to go away. He felt that his place was not in the farm. He wanted to go someplace else, venture out, make his own fortune. Okay? The disrespect, however, that he showed towards his father was probably not written here. But if you will familiarize yourself, or if you are familiar with the Jewish culture, back then, before an inheritance can be given, what has to happen first? The father passes away first, and then the inheritance will come forth to the children. This kid forced his father for his inheritance while the father was still alive. Isn't that like a smack on the face? Right? In Italy, let me just find the right verse here. $15, that's what it is. Thank you, Alder. Still old guys, and I forgot my glasses. I apologize about that. So, when he came to himself, on 15:17, okay? So, Luke 15:17. When he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hard servants have bread enough and to spare, and I put hunger? I will arise and go to my father and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. For I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And how did the father react? Right from the moment he saw from a far distance, instead of waiting for his son to get to his feet and ask for forgiveness, he ran halfway, hugged the boy, and without even taking care to understand what the boy was saying, told the servants, put the best robes, put sandals on his feet, and finally put the ring on his finger. All right? Now, I know that we Adventists, we don't adhere to jewelry. But let me tell you something about this ring. This is what was called the signet ring. Back in those days, the rich and the powerful in the community had signet rings. Okay? So that when they go to the community, that ring identifies who they are. Okay? And specifically, if you are a son of somebody who's well-to-do, you have that ring. So when you walk around the community, people know who you are and who your father is. The father said, put the ring back on his finger, which means that there's no apologies needed. Come back into the fold. You are, once again, my son. Here's a big question. If something like that were ever to happen to you and you slide back, how sure are you that the Father in heaven will take you back in? Because my brother, my sister, if you're not sure about the answer to that question, I can tell you that probably you should learn more about God. That you should probably commit yourself more into learning who God is. Because it says in Jeremiah 29:13, if you want to really know God, it says there, you will see me and find me when you see me with all your heart. All your heart means commit with everything that you got. Okay, so it takes commitment to really know God. The hymn that we sang just a while ago says, He speaks to me everywhere. All these people, the agnostics, the atheists of the world, claim that there's no God. They don't see any evidence of God. Meanwhile, in our hymn, it says, He speaks to me everywhere. Okay? How difficult could it be? In Acts 9:16, it says, if you remember the story, this was Jesus' statement to Ananias. Remember Saul when he turned blind? Okay. Jesus spoke to Ananias and told him to find Saul. And Jesus said, for I will show him, meaning Saul, how much he must suffer for my name's sake. There will be tribulations, my brothers and sisters. You know, when Sister Liza and I, early in the morning, we were in downtown New York City going to the court, to the justice, right? To the judge. And 2 blocks away, somebody was yelling, "Don't do it!" And I was looking at, who is that? I thought it was some kind of a prank. Okay? Don't do it! Like, I guess the person was able to tell because I was wearing a dark suit and she was wearing a white dress. And we kept walking, and at this time I was really laughing already because other people were hearing it too and looking at us. And you know, the person was right there, right at the door. This was the door to the court. He's right here. I told you, man, don't do it. You're going to regret this. So don't do it. Do yourself a favor. This is a big mistake. Don't do it. Well, we've been together 29 years now. In your relationship with Jesus, you must put both feet in. That's the only way. The Lord says, for I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. Well, how many of you here are married couples? Okay, there you go. When you came into that marriage, wasn't it just like reading that? Okay, for I will show him and her how much he must suffer for my name's sake. Because let's face it, there's no perfect marriage, right? The difference between those who divorce and stay married is those who stay married without any reservation, right? That's what it's all about. Because you know what? Even though you will suffer, it's just you will suffer. I mean, marriage is not easy. But there is also another promise behind that, okay? The promise is in Matthew, hold on. No, actually, what am I doing? It's right there. Okay, Matthew 24. Okay, starting on verse 12 though. Let's go to verse 12 first. And once again, the very core of what we were talking about a while ago. How at the end of the time, we will go through tribulation because we will be under attack, right? It already is happening now. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. You heard Elder Clark's story about the pregnant woman. That's just one of the many horrible stories that we hear today. Let me ask you this. Since they stopped, and this is a form of administration within our government, who agreed to stop the teaching and the mentioning of God and Jesus in the school systems, how many school shootings have there been? We never heard of that before they took away God in the school system. And now So far, we're in April now, right? And they're saying there's what, 20 or more now already? Now it's like a common thing, right? And they're still thinking that they did the right thing. Just because one person said, oh, I can't hear about Jesus because it offends me. What about my right? As a Christian, it offends me that I can talk about Jesus at school. What about my right? But sadly, that's what's happening today. But it says here on 12, lawlessness and love growing cold. But on the next verse, it says here, and listen to this, right? But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Okay? For the young people in our church today, I know you live in a society, in an environment where everything is happening so fast. And you become accustomed to that, and you think you like that. But there are many pitfalls to that. That is a very slippery slope. Don't get used to that. Okay? Build and invest time in the relationships that you will be having. This instant gratification that so many people go with and roll with today is one part of the problem. Because it says there that we have to endure because we are going to suffer, right? You all heard the saying, patience is a virtue, okay? Well, according to Romans 5, right? Patience, as we know it, and according to Romans 5, perseverance. Perseverance that can only come from patience, right? Perseverance will bring forth character. And character will bring forth hope. And hope is all we have, my brothers and sisters. Hope in the coming of the Lord. And so we must persevere. We must endure, for in the end, according to Matthew 24, we shall be saved. There will be days of tribulations, my brothers and sisters. And when the going gets tough, when push comes to shove, will you be the ones to say, I'm out of here. I did not sign up for this. And then what's going to happen at the end of time? When here comes Jesus Christ in all his glory, coming back a second time. And you're with him face to face. Will you be able to look him in the eye? If so, then you will be one of those whom he will say, my good and faithful servant. Enter into the kingdom of your Lord. Well done. Or it could be the other way around. It could be, depart from me, I never knew you. Matthew 25 says that at the end of time, the sheep will be separated from the goats. Anybody feel like being a goat? We don't want to be goats. Get to know your God. And you know, I think about one thing I remember telling him is that I know that you have just started getting to know God because you've been an agnostic. And it feels like your time is running short. But let me tell you something, for as long as you're breathing, there is hope. Yeah. I look at Jesus during crucifixion, and there are two thieves on each of his side. Yeah. One thief made fun of him. The other one says, how could you do that? I'm paraphrasing now. How could you do that? This man is innocent while we deserve what we are getting. And then he turned to Jesus face to face. And he said, Jesus, Remember me. Remember me when you go to heaven. And what did Jesus say? Verily, I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise. Face to face. You know how many people there were when Jesus was being crucified? You got the Romans, okay? You got the Jewish soldiers, you got the Pharisees. But the disciples, where were they? They were gone, except for one. There was only one left. John, the Revelator. He was the only one left. Everybody else took off in fear of their lives. It was kind of like a mini tribulation for them, huh? But that's how they reacted. Now we know what happened to them, and they were able to recover. And that's why we're here today as Christians. But the tribulation, the same way it happened to them, will happen to us. How are we going to react? So my brothers and sisters, as I close, I want to ask you one final question. Okay? This thief, he did all the wrong things all his life, and now he's about to die. But at the last moments of who was beside him, when everybody else there did not. Thousands maybe of people there, but there was only one who saw who the real Jesus was. Do you see the real Jesus, my brothers and sisters? Because I can tell you this, the only way to heaven is through him, right? If you don't have the kind of relationship to know for yourself that at the end of the time, you will be the sheep among the goats. What's going to happen if Jesus doesn't know you? If he doesn't know you today, at the end of time, how will he remember you? Amen.
Thank you, Elder Ron, for allowing God to use you this time. The closing hymn is hymn number 206 in North Stand.